Soup is ready?
I'm going to walk out on you at about 5 to 6.
My soup is ready?
So,
Okay.
Evan?
Soup is ready?
No, I've got to go to Metzia in
HaSocher es HaUman.
Beitar.
HaSocher es HaUman. Those person who hires a craftsman, v'chozru behen. So one of them backed out on the other. So yodam ala tachtoina, whoever backed out, his yad is on the tachtoina. So the HaUman already did some of the work, and then he backed out. And then there's the amount of work that still is left to have to be done. So what it means that yad ala tachtoina is, Rashi explains in the up from the bottom of the Rashi is about 10 lines. Yodam ala tachtoina im hukru poilim, right? In order to finish the work that this person started. Ayin base, Amid base. On the Mishnah at the bottom, we are on the bottom line of the Amud in the Mishnah. So the Rashi says that now in order to get the job done, to hire a worker to do the job, it's more expensive than the originally hired. It's more expensive than the original person that he hired. So ve'eno moise mishme yigmareno b'schar shai. He doesn't find anyone that can do it. Would do it. What remains to be done for the same amount that the original person would have been done by the original person. He is going to have to pay the more money to get it done. So if the HaUman was the one that backed out, then the HaUman will have his yad ala tachtoina.
I'm looking at the Rashi.
So if it was the HaUman that backed out, when the HaSocher, the one who needs the work, will hire a new person, and it'll end up costing. So he will withhold some of the pay that he was supposed to pay the first person, and the amount that he has to pay the second person to get the job done, he will subtract it from the amount that the first person deserves for the amount of work that he did, because his yoda is al tachtoina. Rashi explains that Mishi Yigmaren, he couldn't find anyone that would finish the job for the same exact price as the first person would have done it for. Right. That's what it means, that that he will cut into the amount that the first person would deserve for the amount that he did do, and he really does deserve that, but we'll cut into that, because to hire a new person to finish the job, it'll cost more. And then we need that the end amount that the Baal Bayis will pay will be equal to what he originally stipulated with the first worker. So it'll eat into the amount that the first worker should have received for let's say half. Let's say he did half of the work. So he will, and he found if he was going to get, let's say 4 zuz for this work, he did half of it. He did 2 zuz worth of work, and to finish the job, he has to find it costs 3 zuz to finish the job. So the first worker, even though he really deserves 2 zuz, he'll only receive 1 zuz. And that's if the price of a worker went up. But if the price of a worker went down and it became cheaper to hire a person to do this type of job, so then still, since the HaUman was the one who backed out, he still has the yad ala tachtoina, and therefore you might think that if he was supposed to receive 2 zuz for doing half of the job, and they hired somebody to finish the job for 1 zuz, you might think that he should get 3 zuz, the extra, but he doesn't. Yado ala tachtoina, he gets his share of 2 zuz, and the bala bias just hires the new person for 1 zuz. And if the bala bias was the one that backed out, so then if he found someone to finish the job for less, for like 1 zuz, then his yado ala tachtona, he has to pay the original worker that extra zuz, because if he, in the case where he found someone to complete the work cheaper, so then since it's the balabayas who backed out, so all of the extra money that up until the value of what the whole job would have been according to the first worker, you give all that extra money to the first worker because it wasn't his fault. It was the balabayas that backed out on him. Right, the Gemara continues on Ayin Vav Amin Aleph. He says, we're in the Mishnah. Im balabayas choser, and if it was the balabayas that was the one who backed out of the contract, the agreement. So bo yodo ala tachtana. So he choser bo yodo ala tachtana. So he will have the lower hand, and like we just explained, if he has to finish the job, he finds somebody that can do it cheaper, he'll have to pay the first worker all the extra up until the full amount that he originally expected to receive for this job. Kol hamishana, anyone who, when there's an agreement between 2 people and about what to do and doing something, and one changes from the way it was originally agreed, that person who changed is yodo ala tachtona. Rashi 3 lines down from the top. Kol hamishana yodo ala tachtona. Going. Nosan Tzemer gave Tzemer to be dyed by a dyer. So he painted it, instead of painting it red, he painted it black. So there's 2 things over here. There's the amount that painting it black improved the raw Tzemer, and there's the expenses for the dye and all of the other materials. So there's the one who was Mishana, the dyer, was supposed to paint it red, but he painted it black. So his yad will always be ala tachtona, that if we look at which was more. Is it the improvement that the wool went up? Now it's worth more, and then the hotzah. So if the improvement is worth the amount, if it used to be worth $10 and now it's worth $16, let's say, and the improvement was $4 of the improvement by painting it black instead, but the expenses was $2, he only has to pay $2 to the since the HaUman, the craftsman, was the one who was Mashana, he only will get $2. But if the expenses was $4 and the improvement to the wool was only $2, so then he only pays him the improvement. And that's called Mashana, Yado ala Tachtana. And like we said before, the Gemara will explain later why we're repeating. Whoever is choizer on a heskem, on an agreement, he will always have the lower hand. The Gemara will later go into that, why it's what's being learned, because we basically learned that already. Talk the Gemara. Chozru zeh b'zeh lokatani. And if you look in the Mishnah, it doesn't say that whoever backs out one on the other. Rather, it says HaSocher es HaUman v'hatau zeh zeh. And they misled one another. It didn't say they backed out from one another. So more is bothered by that. So chozru zeh b'zeh lo katani doesn't say that they backed out from each other. Ela tau zeh b'zeh. The hatau poilim. Right. So the more answer. So we don't understand why. Because Rashi says, first Rashi on the Gemara, chozru behen lo katani doesn't say that they retracted one from the other. Dini heavy high hatau hem es balabayas. That retracting is basically also causing the person like misleading, is also like making a person like mistake. Tricking is also leading him into the deal and then backing out, is also like would also be considered hatau. Dini heavy high hatau hem as balabayas O balabayas oison. That would have also, backing out would have also been a way of a tohu. Tohu is like to lead the person into a deal and then mess him up. It says you lead him in, you say, yes, I'll hire you. And then if one would back out of the deal, so you left him stranded.
What are the two cases in Rashi?
Yeah, so Rashi says that chozru behen lo katani. It doesn't say that they retracted from each other. And it could have said that because backing out for the balabais to back out is being hatau the worker, and for the worker to back out, that's being hatau the balabais. So why didn't it say just that they backed out from each other? That's what the dini heavy high hatau hem es balabais. The workers would be hatau the balabais if they backed out on him. Oh, balabais, oisan would be hatau them if the balabais backed out on the workers. To im kain. Heavy lay lemisne lashon chazor, and since that chazor basically means hatol, why didn't they just use the word chazor? Some more answers. We're not talking about the balabayas with the workers. We're talking about there was a workers, like one worker was in charge of hiring other workers, and he misled the workers. He hired workers for the balabayas, and he drew them into the agreement falsely by telling them that they would get paid wrong amounts, not the amount that the balabayas wanted to pay them. So that's what we're referring to over here. Poilim adadi. What's the case? To omarle balabayas zil. He told the worker to go and hire him workers. Ozil Ihu, and the worker, let's call him the contractor or whatever, he went to hire the workers. Vatinu, and he misled the workers that he was hiring. Hekidami, how did he do it? Id Omarle Balabayas Ba'arba. What's the case? Either Omarle Balabayas Ba'arba. If the Balabayas told this contractor that he wanted to pay the workers four zuz for the work for the day, and then the contractor went to hire the Ozil Ihu Omarlehu Bisloso, and he went then told them, oh, we're hiring for three zuz, or whatever, 3 slime, whatever it was. So then we don't understand. Why does it say? The Mishnah says, if they will mislead one another, there's no monetary claim one on the other. There's only rights to complain or to speak about how they did wrong. So why, if in this case, why would there be a right for complaint? Here the contractor told them that they would be receiving 3 for the job. They accepted and they came to work. The fact that the Balabayas had originally said that he was going to pay them 4, that really doesn't. Why would they have the right to have complaints on the contractor? That's what we're talking about. The Poilim having complaints on the contractor over here. Why would they? They accepted what the contractor had said to them. So this also, taromes, my avidisai, avidite. So what taromes, what complaints can these workers have on the contractor? Sovar vakovio. They heard what he said and they accepted it. So we want to ask, what was the case? So, if the Balabayas had told that he was going to hire them for 3 zuz for the day, and then the contractor went and said, the Ozil Ihu, Omarlahu Ba'arba, and he told them, oh, you're going to be hired for 4. So, Hetidami, what would that be talking about? So, Id Omar Lahu. So, how can that be a case? How could that be a case? So we're bothered because if the case was, like we just started off saying, that the Balabais told them 4, and the contractor hired them for 3, we didn't understand how could there be any taromes, because he heard what they were being offered, and that's what they hired themselves for that amount. So we're trying to find the other case. Which case can there be taromes? So if it's talking about So either Omar Le Balabais, if the Balabais had really said the other way, he had told them 3, I'll hire them for 3. And then the contractor hired them for 4. Maybe that's the case where there could be taromis. So then we have to look at what was going on in that case. If he said that I'm the one who's going to be paying you, so basically what he's doing is he was offering 1 more zuz for their pay, and that 1 zuz is going to be on him because the Bailim never were willing to pay for. He said, I'm paying you. I'm your pay. I'm paying your wages. And so he's going to have to pay. The contractor will have to take out of his pocket to pay the workers that extra zuz. True, the 3 will come from the Baal Bias, but that extra zuz will come from that contractor. So Neisiv Lahu Midideh, he's going to have to give them from his own money. Why? Because we have a brisa. The Tanya we learn in a brisa, HaSocher Esapayil, one whoever hires a worker, Lasois Bishalo, to work for him. Va'areyu Bishal Chaver. And what does he do? He walks him over to his friend's field and tells him to start working. So he hires him for himself and he puts him onto the field of somebody else. So basically he just improved somebody else's field by hiring with hired work. So Noisun Lo Schar, he has to pay this worker. He can't not pay the worker. So he has to pay him. But what about the improvement of the field? So Mishalim Scharo Mishalim, he pays the worker full amount that they agreed upon. What about the person who benefited from this work? Goes over to the Bala Soda, the Chayzer v'Noitel Mibala Bias Mashe Sheneu. So what does he do? He doesn't take full, but he does take from the one who just had his field worked on. He does take according to how much hana that person just received. If that person really had benefit done to his field, if he just had his field plowed now, and it was plowing season, and he doesn't have to plow it now, so he's going to have to pay for that plowing, just that amount. So therefore we see that a person, so that's like taking these, so true, the Balabais who said he wanted to pay 3 will pay for those 3. That's like, right? And that's like the 3. And like we saw in the case, that the one who hired that worker has to pay the full amount that they agreed upon. The one who had the work done to his field is not going to end up paying him full amount that they agreed upon. And that's similar to our case over here. The Balabais wanted to pay him 3. He offered another zuz, so that contractor is going to have to end up paying the larger amount, the extra zuz. And true, the Balabais will pay for that 3, which is considered the amount that he wanted to pay him for originally. And the extra that was agreed upon with the contractor and the workers, the contractor will have to pay for that. And so then, if that's true, where is there any tarones? Who's he going to complain to? He can't complain to the Balabais, and he can't complain to the contractor who hired them. So that can't be the case where the Balabais who was going to offer them 3 and the contractor added another zuz. So what did we mean? What does our Mishnah mean that there's tarones in this case where one will trick or back out of a heskem, of an agreement? My answer is lo tzricha. What are we talking about? The Omar lahu, because when the contractor hired Polim, he told them scharchem al balabayas. No, he told them 4, and you'll be paid by the balabayas. But the balabayas only told them 3. So the Gemara says, well, why should there be any taromes over here? Who's going to have the taromes? B'lechaze Polim. Just go and look how much for this job, this type of poil goes for in the market. And if they go for 4, then the Bailim should have to pay the 4. Just because he offered 3, shouldn't just look at how much they go for, and then the Bailim should pay that amount. And if the job is done, it costs 3 zuz to get this job done. So what taromis is he allowed to have on the Bailim? My answer is lo. What are we talking about? Lo tzricha deika demegar ba'arbo'ah beika lemitgar bisloso. No, the problem is that this job goes sometimes for 3 and sometimes for 4. So we didn't know. The Bailim really wanted to give them 3 for the job, and the contractor offered them 4 and said the Bailim will pay you for it. So we don't know. So now the Bailim might not pay it because he doesn't have to, and then they were saying that they have the right to taromis. Could they have the right to taromis on the contractor? No, they. Right. So Rashi, where we are in the Gemara up about 6-7 lines. Just see how much people get for this job. If they do get paid for al korche de balabayis nisiv arbo, then the bailim would have to give them 4, even though he originally offered 3. Tahar katani noitel mi balabayis, because the contractor told him, "Oh, get it from the balabayis." That's how he hired them. So because we learned before in the brisa before that there was a right to collect from the owner of that field that had worked on his field without asking for it to get the amount that he was nena. And if that's the amount that this job costs, then there's a right to collect from this balabayas that only wants to pay 3. But if he got 4 zuz worth of hana, he has to pay that amount. Shehene oiso, even though he never asked for it. Bahari hano hena oiso bekach, and therefore we would be seeing that these poilim, if they're hired for 4, they would have been amnena him 4. And if the price for this job is only 3, my taroimes ika, then there won't be any taroimes. So that was the shaila. That's the shaila. And for the Gemara, the reason why we're saying that there's a taroimes, the omrule, they sold him, because what happened? You offered us 4. Let's say in the case where it's 3, they only pay 3 for this type of work, and he's only going to get 3, and there will be taroimes. That's what we just said.
No, there's no taroimes in that case. Because that's the rate. 3 is the rate. They can't complain.
Right. There's no complaints there either when there's 3. So then where do we see the complaints? The reason we see the complaints is like this. In the case where the price was 3, the amount for this job was 3. That's where we're going to see the complaints. Why? The Omrile, because they tell him, Ilab Amrat Lan. Because the contractor hired them for 4. So Tarchinan Mitargiinan Ba'arbo. If you had just come up to us for 3, the going rate, we wouldn't have hired ourselves. We would have searched high.
The going rate in this case.
3 is the
3 and 4, both of the going rate.
That's right. Right. All right. They're both. So So if you had hired us for 3, which is also the going rate, we wouldn't have accepted, because we would have looked for another person. We would have been mishtadel and made efforts to try to get the job at 4.
So the workers were hired at 3. They didn't realise that they could have been hired at 4 until after they were hired at the rate of 3.
They were hired at the rate of 4, and then when it came to get paid, Baalim says, "I never offered 4. I only offered 3. So therefore, I'm only paying you 3." And so they're complaining. And what's their complaint? They should have no complaint, because if that's the like we're talking about here, the going rate is both.
They have a complaint because they can say, if we had known that we were only getting 3, we would have held out for 4. We would have gone to somebody who pays 4, because 4 is also a valid rate in the marketplace.
So we're talking about a place where it's both. Right. So at first we thought to just see what the rate is, but now the answer is that we see that the rate is both. So that the problem is that we wouldn't have hired ourselves for the lower rate. We would have been mishtadel and tried to get someone to hire us for the higher rate. And you told us we were getting the higher rate. And in the end, the Bailim wasn't willing to pay us the higher rate. That's their taromis. And it would be on the, I guess, it would be on the contractor. The one answers to Omri Le, Ilav the Amrat Lan Ba'arbo, Tarchinan Mitagrinan Ba'arbo. We would have been Mitriach ourselves and got ourselves hired for 4. Right. So that would be their taromis. And I guess it would be, Rashi, were we on the Gemara up 3 lines? Tarchinan, Levakesh Odam de Zokuk Lepoilim, that he's desperate for Poilim. Shiyisko Be'arbo, I guess the complaint would be on the contractor. Or maybe it would be on the, so it wasn't the Bailis that did anything wrong. He never. Anyway, so there's the taromis.
Yeah, it has to be on the
Contractor. Right,
He's
so
the one that said the false thing.
the Gemara says another explanation of where the taromis is Ibois Ema, Hacha B'Balabayas. That we're not talking about a payel who's a contractor. The worker is a balabayas. He owns fields himself, but here he was willing to hire himself over to another person. So he told Askinan to Amrei Le. He loved the Amrat Lan Ba'arbo. I thought I was getting hired for 4, and in the end, you're only telling me that I'm going to get 3. I'm a balabais. I could have stayed on my land working my own land. I wouldn't have gone down to hire myself out for the. It's a bizoyon for me. And the only reason I did it is because I thought I was going to get a lot of money for it. So Arminan, he loved the Arminan Lan Ba'arbo. Have a zila bon. Milsa. If it wasn't that I was getting paid for it, would have been a bizoyon for me to work for this, to be hired out for this job. The tagure. And so therefore that's his complaint. And that's on the balabais. That's against the balabais because there's no middleman, there's no contractor in this case.
No, it's on the
No, there's no contractor in this case. We're talking about
The contractor said 4. The Balabais says 3.
It could have been a contractor. It doesn't matter, right?
Are upset. They say if we had known it was 3, we wouldn't have worked for you because
Right.
we have our own farms.
It doesn't really matter who hired him, right? Could have been Balabais or it could have been a contractor hiring him.
If the Balabais had hired them and he had said 4, he would have had to pay 4. The only situation you can have where they have a complaint is that the hiring manager, the contractor said 4, but the balabais said only 3, and now these workers who are also
So you have to have him, right? Very good. So we're talking about there's got to have a hiring manager, right? Because we're talking about the worker is a balabais himself. Another case is Ibois Ema La'ilam B'Pailim. No, we're talking about workers. He's not a balabais. He doesn't own his own field. He's a worker being hired askinan. To Amrei Le, what did they tell the hiring manager? Kaven de Amrat Lan Ba'arbo. Once you told us we were getting hired for 4, Tarchinin va'avdinin lach avidata shapirta. So we worked very hard. We did a good job because we thought we were getting that amount of money. So the Gemara says, and therefore there's the taroimus. If we're not getting paid 4, and they complain that they did that extra work, and they're only getting paid 3 because the Bailim is only willing to pay them 3. So, because the work manager said it's on the Bailim. And so the Gemara answers, well, we can figure out whether they should have taromas. Why do they have taromas? Just look and see the extra work that they did. If they did truly an extra work, then they could have taromas. If they didn't do any extra spectacular work, then they won't have the rights to taromas. Look at their work. The Gemara answers berifka. The reason we can't look at their work is because we're dealing with rifka. Rifka is when they are digging irrigation ditches or bringing they were digging irrigation ditches. And so therefore, that's why we can't tell the quality of their work. Gemara says, Rivka Nami made the other. We know whether irrigation ditches, how they're dug, and if they were dug exceptionally well or not. Gemara answers, Demali Maya. The reason is because they got filled with water, so you couldn't see the depth that they dug it to and how they lined the bottom or anything about the ditch that they did. We can't tell. So therefore, what happens? We can't tell the quality of their work. They say they did a great job, extra good job, and the Bailim is not willing, doesn't have to pay them. There's no chiyuv mamonos to pay them more. And so therefore, that's where they get taroimus. And that's what, because there was water in it, they don't know. They don't know what was the true their job that they really did. Another answer is really, we can say that the owner told that he was going to hire for 4. And the hiring manager told them bisolsa. Well, you're being hired for 3. So we had a problem before because they were hired they were supposed to, they should not have any taroimus to the hiring manager because they accepted what the hiring manager told them at 3. They heard and they accepted. So why, how can we be referring to this type of case? And for the Gemara, amrat sover v'kol, that which you said before, that they heard what he said and they accepted it. So therefore, they can't have taroimus. What is the case? They said, the Pailim told the manager, don't you abide by the psukim in Mishlei that says, Al timone tov mibalaiv, that don't hold back. If the Bailim was willing to give 4, you go and you hire for 3. Like, why are you holding back the good that someone wants to give another person for no reason whatsoever? So you don't hold of that. So that's their taroimus. Why wasn't Mekayim?
But that seems flawed because the contractor can say, I was doing good for my boss. He said 4, but I knew from my experience that I could get you for 3. So I was doing a good deed for him.
Unfortunately, well, what about his? Why don't we look at the hirer, the HaSocher? Al timone tov mibalaiv. Why should you take money away from the owner? The answer is, since the owner was originally willing to pay them 4, it's not considered that you're taking away from him by when you if you would charge them what he originally wanted to pay. So therefore, it is only a complaint against the hiring manager, the contractor. More has a pshita, of course. So it's pasha. The following case is pasha. Pshita. Amarle balabais. If the balabais bisolso said, I will pay them 3. Ozil iu Amarle ba'abo, and he then hired them for the higher amount. Amarle k'moshe Omar balabais taitenu alai aluye. So it's pasha here that if they said whatever the balabais wants, so it's being pasha. It's said to be pasha the case that what happened, the contractor quoted a price of 4, and they said, oh yes, okay, whatever the owner wants. So the understanding is that they think that the owner said 4, and they're going according to the 4. So they think that they're not going to get less than 4. So that's pashut, that they won't get less than, they won't expect less than 4. Balabais. But if the balabais told them the arbo, and the contractor told them Omar lahu bis also, oh, you're being hired for 3, and then they said the same thing. They said ba'amulei kima she'omar balabais, whatever the balabais said. So they think the balabais said 3. And whenever they say that, they don't expect less than what they think the balabais said. They think the balabais said 3. They're not agreeing to 2. They're agreeing to 3 or more. So they think. So in the case where the contractor told them 4, they said, oh yes, okay, 4 or more, but they didn't. So there we could understand that there would be taroimus because they would then be getting 3. which is less than what they expected. But here, where the Balabais told them 4, and they say 3, and they say, oh yeah, whatever the Balabais wants, and they intend the 3 and not less than 3, so they're going to end up getting. So will there be any taromas? So that's not so clear if there'll be taromas over there. So Omar, Kamashi Omar Balabais. So how do we look at it? Do we say that when he said whatever the Balabais wants, and therefore do they think that the contractor is? Do they believe the contractor when the contractor says 3, 3, and that do they really think that that's what the Balabais wanted, 3, and therefore they will be going according to 3? And then there would be taroimus on the contractor. Why did you tell us 3 when they find out later that the Balabais really meant 4? Or do we say no, that they will get 4, whatever the Balabais wanted? They don't believe the contractor, and they therefore are saying no. Basically, whatever the Balabais really said, that's what we want, and then there will be no room for taroimus. They will get their 4. That's the way there's a question. So adibura didei. Do they really trust the contractor? And therefore there would be taromis when they find out later that the Balaam really said 4. Maybe they will get 4. To Omre, could be they're only going to get 3, and that's the taromis. To Omre lay, somche, to Omre lay, me'emenes lan, Hachi Omar Balabais, reading in other words, yes, we trust you that this was the Balabais means 3. Or do we look at it and say, Adibura de Balabais ko samchi? We don't trust you. We really mean to say what the Balabais really said. So that's the shaila. We're going to try to bring rayas for who will be really samach on. Who are people samach on when there's an intermediary? Is it the original person, or is it the shliach that is telling them what the original person wanted? That'll be determined, and we're going to try to prove that they're samach on the intermediary person, and which would mean that there could be room for taroimus. It seems. Tashma, Brisa, habo havali gitai. So the shliach comes to the man and says, the woman tells the shliach, go bring me my get. So when she says that, she means she's not making him a shliach l'kabbalah. What she's trying to make him do is to bring her the get, which he would become a shliach l'halacha, which is something only the husband can appoint a shliach l'halacha to bring it to her. And she's telling him to become a shliach l'halacha, which she doesn't even have the power to make him a shliach l'halacha. She only has the power to make a shliach to be like herself, a shliach l'kabbalah, to receive it. She's telling him to be a shliach l'halacha. She doesn't have the right to do that. So he goes, and he tells, when he comes in front of the husband, v'ishtecha omra hiskabeli giti, and he tells the husband, oh, your wife told me to become a shliach l'kabbalah, which would mean that as soon as the husband would put it into the shliach's hand, she would be divorced because the shliach would be like herself. So the husband says, "V'hu omer helech kimasha omra." So take it like she said. So what does he mean? Does he mean, she just told you to be a shliach l'kabbalah? Is that what the husband means? Is that what the husband means? That he's intending to give over the get? According to what he thinks according to the fact that he thinks that she said he should be a shliach l'kabbalah, and therefore husband thinks that she's divorced the minute he gives it over to the shliach. So Omar, which would mean he's samach on what the shliach said. Omar Rav Nachman bar Rabba bar Avua. Omar Rav, in the name of Rav, afilu hagia get liyoda. In a case like this, even if the get would get all the way to her hands, meaning it would be brought to her and it would be like fulfillment of what a shliach l'halacha does, and that's what she asked for, bring it to me as a shliach l'halacha, ain't migratious. She's not going to be migratious. Why? What happens? Because how would she be migratious? When the husband said, do as the what my wife wanted, so The fact that she's not Megareshes, first of all, it shows that where the husband had das for the shliachs, where he trusted the shliach, that what the shliach said was what she wanted. And therefore he said, do what she wanted. And it would have been, if he had, and because if he had das on what she wanted him to become a shliach lehalacha. And therefore, the fact that we're saying that if it's brought all the way back to her, she's still not divorced, it must be that he's not samach on what the wife really wanted. He's samach on what the shliach said she wanted. So therefore, applying it back to our case, therefore the contractor was the middle hiring person, and the poilim would really trust what he is, his araya. The poilim would be samach on that contractor when he said what the bailim was hiring them for. So shmas mina adibur didei, so that we really are samach on the shliach's words. Kasamach dibur didei kasamach to isa gedaita, because we would say that the husband was samach on the words of the wife, she should have been divorced when it would come to her hand. So mechi mate gita liyoda miha migaresh. She should have been divorced, and she wasn't, according to Rab Nachman bar Rabba bar Avua Amar Rab, in the name of Rab. Amar Rab Ashi. Hochi hashta. Now that we're saying this, and it seems like we're proving that the person is samach on the intermediary that comes before him and tells what the person who sent him told him. So bishlema itmar ifcha. We could say that if you would say the opposite, that the wife asked the shliach to be a different type of shliach, that we could better understand the case. If you would say the opposite, that the wife told the husband, hiskabali giti, that you should be a shliach with Kabbalah, to receive that as soon as the husband would put the get into the shliach's hand, that she would be divorced. That's what she asked from him. Then the shliach told the husband, "V'ishtecha amra havali giti," and then the shliach comes before the husband and asks the husband to send her the get. So here, Rav Ashi is saying this would be good, because at least in this case, who Omer, and he says, the husband says back, Omer, Heilech k'mo amra, give it to her the way she wanted it. If she wanted, right? So the shliach is saying that she's asked for a shliach l'halacha, and so, right. So on that, Omer Rav Nachman, Omer Rabba bar Avu Omer Rav, that Mashiach get, when the get will come to her hand, Migareshes. She is Migareshes. Well, that makes sense, because if the husband said that, here will be also a raya that the husband was samach on the das of the shliach. Why? Because when the shliach said that the wife wanted a shliach lahalacha, the husband said do it that way, and it worked, because the husband has the right as the koyach to make a shliach lahalacha. So if she's asking for it and the husband said do it, then the husband was making him a shliach lahalacha. Took this person and made him and said, go do it. And he has that right. So Alma did the opposite. Gracious. Oh no! So what happened was, a Mashiach get liyodo. So Rav Huna, in the name of Rav Nachman, Omar Rabba bar Abu Omar Rav, said that Mashiach get liyodo. When the get will get to the hand of the shliach, she's suddenly going to be divorced, megareshes. And from that, you see that we don't look at what the shliach was saying, that she wanted a shliach lahalacha. Rather, we are going according to what she asked. She wanted a shliach l'kabbalah in this second case. So, because how could she be divorced immediately when the get is put into the hand of the shliach? So there is a raya that we're looking at the das of the one who's the sender. Inami, or you could look at it the other way. You could say that Mishigir get liyada, when it would go all the way back to her, we could say it should be migreshis. And that would prove that we go after according to the words of the shliach. Either way, it could prove either way. Migreshis. Alma ta'adibura didei kosamech. If we look at it those ways, it could be a proof for this or for that. But if you look at the first case where she sent him and said, "Be a shliach l'halacha," and he goes and says, I'm a shliach l'kabbalah. Your wife sent me as a shliach l'kabbalah. It wasn't migreshis. So the Gemara answers, "Elahosam." In that case, why was it not migreshis? That you can't prove anything. In other words, if you would look at this second case, you could maybe prove that we're samach on this person or on that person. But if you look at the first case, you can't prove at all from that first case that we're samach on this person or that person. And like the Gemara wants to try to say that we're samach on the shliach, you can't prove it, because that case, the reason why she's not migreshis could be for a completely different reason. Elahosam, because mishum de'okar shliach l'shlichuse, the gamre. That's why she would not be migreshis when he would bring it back. Not because she said to make a shliach l'chalach and he said to make a shliach l'kabbalah, and when it will come back to her hand, she won't be divorced because we don't listen to what she said. But rather, when the shliach came and said, "Oh, your wife told me that she wanted me to be a shliach l'kabbalah," he was contradicting what she sent him as. She sent him as a shliach l'halacha. He comes and says he's a shliach l'kabbalah. That's a contradiction to being a shliach l'halacha. So therefore, he was oiker her appointment with his own words, and the shliach has to want to be a makayim, to want to be a shliach. If he says, "I'm not going to be a shliach like that," he's not a shliach. That was the problem. That's why when he brought it back, he had already, at that stage when he said he's a shliach l'kabbalah, he had already broken his shlichus. He wasn't any longer her shliach, and therefore it wouldn't, or his shliach. So the Gemara says, the Gamri, the Omar Le, shliach l'kabbalah havinan l'halacha lo havinan. He said, "Oh, I'm a shliach l'kabbalah," but I'm not a shliach l'halacha. So then when the husband would send him back, based on that, he had already, and the husband is like making him, so even if he would bring it back to her, it wouldn't be because of shlichus, because so Rashi explains, big long Rashi, where we on the Gemara, in the narrow lines of Rashi, down about 6-7 lines. Elahosam over there in the case where it wasn't migreshis, when the wife sent him as a shliach halacha and the shliach said he's a shliach l'kabbalah, wasn't migreshis. Even if it would come back to her hand, it wouldn't be migreshis. Why not? Elahosam shmas le to Omar eino migreshis. In that case where Huna told us it wasn't migreshis, ein lecha lilmod. You can't learn from there that we're samach on this person or that person, that we're samach on the shliach.
What's the shmash?
The shmas that we hear from there, lay to Omar in migreshis, we heard from there that she would not be migreshis in that case. You can't derive from there that we use samach on the shliach. Ein lecha lilmod mid Rav Nachman. You can't learn from Rav Nachman the ade dibura D-Day, samach that we're samach on his dibur, like we wanted to say. And the ein kan shlichus, to say that there's no shlichus here. That the husband thought she was a shlichus kabbalah, and we thought that if she's not going to be divorced, it's because there's no shlich the way as she said it, because when the husband said, as she said, and he thought that she had said Kabbalah, that's what he thought she had said. So therefore, the shliach lahalacha was not in the mind of the husband. So therefore, that's what we thought was happening over there. That he wasn't going al das the shliach halacha, and that's why she wasn't being divorced. We can't say that to inami because amrinan de adibur di da samach. Even in the case where we could say the husband really meant what the wife really said, that's what I want, and she said shliach halacha, she would not have been divorced. If the husband said send it back to her and it came to her hand, she would not have been divorced. Why not? Because the wife cannot make a shliach lahalacha. And the fact that the shliach himself said, "Oh, she's a shliach al-Kabbalah," he was mevatel any shlichas that she would have appointed him as shliach al-halacha. He was saying, "I don't want to be a shliach al-halacha." When he came and said, "I'm just a shliach al-Kabbalah," because it's easier to be a shliach al-Kabbalah. You don't have to go all the way back to the wife. So in terms of the tircha, he's saying, "I don't want that much tircha." So when he said he was just a shliach Kabbalah, all you have to do is receive it, and she's already divorced. And he said, I don't want the extra tircha of having to take it all the way back. So he was mevatel that whole shlichus. Rashi says, so even if the inami amrinan the adibur dida, someone who would rely that the husband did want what she wanted, to afabal also shliach lahalach, and even if the husband just took that shliach and said, "Oh, you be a shliach lahalach," and go back to her. Kidivrei Aisha, like my wife wants. Ein kan shlichus, that wouldn't be shlichus. Shahari ashliach lo nisrotza, because he doesn't want to be a shliach lahalacha. So it wouldn't be a shliach lahalacha. How do we know he doesn't want to be a shliach lahalacha? Because he says he's a shliach l'kabbalah. That's a negation of his first shlichus. Taha okar le l'shlichus legamri. He was already okar his shlichus. To omar la shliach l'kabbalah. Ifshi, I only want to be a shliach Kabbalah. That's okay for me. La sois, shlo torach la gil yada. That I don't have to work hard to bring it all the way to her hand. Aval, to be that what she originally pointed me. I don't want that. Aval shliach halacha litroyach ula gil yada. Like she asked me, ifshi, I don't want. So therefore, even if the husband sent him back like that, he wasn't even a shliach at that point. If she la'asois halacha, la'asois, period. Hilkach, therefore, since that's what happened, filu nimlach, even if la'gil etzla, even if the shliach would decide, okay, I'll go back. Ein zeh shliach, he's not even a shliach. Shenitain legerushin, it can be used to divorce her. Shekiblu lo kiblu al menasken, because when he accepted it, he didn't accept it the shlichus for this purpose. Only maybe later, if he would anyway go back and give it to her, he wasn't a shlich for that because he already was okir his shlichus for that. Even if later he'll give it to her. The ikasha ha'amrinan gabi ifcha. Right? We had this whole we said before that if you would be the opposite, it would have worked. So if she had asked for a shliach l'kabbalah and he said I'm on a shliach l'halacha, we said that would have worked. He would have been able to bring it back to her, and it would have been a good shliach l'halacha. So if you ask on that, ifcha heicha tehi amra hiskabel, when she said be a shliach l'kabbalah, and the husband and the shliach said I'm a shliach l'halacha, and if he would go back, it would work. V'hu omar lebal ishtecha omra hava. He said bring it as a shliach l'halacha. V'hu omar heilech, take it. Kamasha omar, like she said. Ti'i havi omar Allah mishiagia get liyodom. And right. So if in that case, Ti'i have Omar Allah, if we would say at the point where the husband would give it to the shliach, When it gets to the hand of the shliach, if we would say that she would be megreshus, we would prove from there that he's samach on what the wife really wants, because she asked for a shliach lekabbalah. Havi shminin dadi buradi da samach. We would, that's like we said, it would be a perfect proof that we're samach on what she wanted. If we would say that she was megreshus when it went into the hand of the shliach, the mosro lo almanas kabbalah, and therefore he gave it over as to be a shliach lekabbalah. And there we didn't have. And we didn't have any problem that he had been oiker his shlichus. She had pointed him to be a shlich l'kabbalah, and he said, "I'm a shlich l'halacha." And then we said before that if he would put it into his hand, as with intention for it to be a shlich al das the wife, what she wanted, it would have worked. Why don't we say that he was oiker to uproot his shlichus when he said the opposite to what she sent him as? The reason is because he wasn't oiker. By saying she's a shliach lehalacha, that's not being oiker what she originally told him to be, a shliach lekabbalah. Because in terms of tircha, she told him to be a shliach which has very little tircha. He comes and claims that she was sent him as a shliach which has a lot of tircha. So it shows that he's willing to go to the other end of the earth to do a shlichus, to take it all the way back to her. So for sure he would be willing just to take it into his hand in terms of tircha. So it's just that problem is that the other way around doesn't work. Just if that's like we said before. But this way is not a problem. Say it this way, that's why we didn't have a problem with it that way. So the Gemara says, so then we said, boys, Imam, you could say, Hi Tana, Chozru Nami Hatohu Korile. Because we had this whole problem understanding what do we mean, the Lashon Atohu instead of Chazoru. Just let them retract from each other, and then there will be. And so we want to understand that it was like there was this middle hiring agent, and therefore there was that type of misunderstanding. But you could also say that the Lashon Chazru is Atohu. It's used they're interchangeably used. That would have been another explanation of why. And therefore, if they had hired each other and they hadn't started working yet, and one backed out, then there could be complaints, even though you can't ask him for, he didn't do any work. So you can't claim money from the owner if someone or whoever backed out. There won't be any monetary claims one against the other, but there will be taroimus. So the Tanya we learn in Brisa. And this is an explanation how we can use the Lashon Chazru and Tahu interchangeably. The Tanya we learn in Brisa HaSocher, HaUman, someone who hires craftsmen, HaTahu Balabayas. And the craftsmen misled the Balabayas. Or Balabayas HaTah Oisan, or the Balabayas misled the craftsman. So Ein Lehem Ze Al Ze El Taramis. There's no monetary claims one or the other, and there's only the right to complain. What's the case? Shelo holchu. When we're talking about in the case where with a poyo, he was hired a worker, and they hadn't yet gone to the field to do the work, and then the bailim fired them. So in the case where all they can have is taraimis. While holchu chamarim, or if let's say the chamarim were donkey drivers were told to go pick up some tavua from in a faraway field, he was sent, and then v'lo matzu tavua. So in the case where they did go, and then they didn't find, there was no job for them to do there. V'lo matzu tavua. So or that would be donkey drivers, or poilim were sent to work on a field to like dig ditches or something. The Motsu saw that kishehi lacha, and they found that the field was unworkable after they had gone to the field. So the Baal is there, it's worse than Taraimus. There you can't have Taraimus, the Imamish have to pay him his monetary claims. So the Taraimus is when they hadn't yet gone down to the work site. But if they had gone to the work site, then there's more than that. You have to pay them the full amount. Noisin lahen scharan mishalim. You have to pay them the full amount of their agreement. About eino doime. So the Gemara asks, why should you be doing that? Why should you be paying them full amount when they didn't do any work? It's a lot different coming back with empty donkeys over the mountains and everything than with full donkeys. And it's a lot different working the field all day than to sit on the side and drink coffee. So about Eino Doima Habo Toin Lebo Rekan. There's no, how can you compare? Why are you paying him full wage? How can you compare coming back with the donkeys empty to coming with them full and giving money as though they came full and they didn't? Or similarly, Oise Malacha Liyoshev of a bottle. How can you compare doing the work all day to someone who just sat there and didn't do work? So why are they being paid? With more, I think. Rashi in the wide lines of Rashi down about 6-7 lines, 5 lines. About Eino Doime Habo Ta'oin Le Habo Rekam. How can you compare the two? But Oimdim as a Chamarim Kama Adam Roitz. So what happened is here's a shita that you wouldn't really pay them full wage. You would pay them as schar bottle. You would see how much they would be willing to take. They're not going to get their full wage that day, but they will pay them, but they won't have to work. The person has a very difficult job. So don't work. How much would you take not to have to do your job today and get paid? It's not going to be the full amount, but at least you get the benefit of you have a day off and you're getting paid. That's what that more says. Now we're going. That was with Poilim. So the Gemara says, So therefore, there will be some type of a pay. So we're going back. We're going back now to that was with the poem. Now we're going back to the Uman, someone who does a craftsmanship. So, where is it that there's taroimes with a craftsman? So, he went to a craftsman was hired, and he hadn't started the malacha. But if they had started the work, so then they will get paid a certain amount. You estimate how much work they did. And Rashi, in the wide lines of Rashi, about six lines down. 7 lines. Shelo itchilu b'malacha. They didn't start. Aresh. This is going on the Umnin. Kai. V'ad hashta up until now. Forish midei d'schiris. We're talking about hired workers for the hired day workers. V'hashta forish mili d'kablanos. Now we're talking about hiring a person for a fixed fixed job, he will get paid X amount for completing this job. It's not a day worker. So that's what we're talking. How does it work with a kablan? Shlo yitchilu b'malacha. They didn't yet begin the work. About yitchilu b'malacha, they started doing the job. Shamin lehen ma she'asu. You look at how much they did already. Ketzad. What do you mean? What do we mean? Kablu, kiblu kemach liktzor. B'shnei slaim. He hired a person to harvest a field of standing stalks for 2 slaim. Kotsu chetzia. He cut down half the field and left the other, and then stopped. Then nichu chetzia, and he left over half the field. He didn't want to finish the job. Or a beged la'aroig b'shnei slaim. Or he hired a person to weave a beged for 2 slaim. Or gu chetzio ve'nichu chetzio, and he wove half of it and he left over the other half and didn't finish it. So shaman lehen esma she'osu, you then may estimate what they did. Now, if what had to be done finished, in order to get that done, you would have to pay yofi. Haya yofi shisha dinarim. If the amount to get it done now would cost shisha dinarim, which is every seller is 4 dinarim, so it's a sell and a half to get it done. And this person was originally hired to do the whole job for 2 sloim. So now he would end up paying 2 sloim and a half to get the job done. So if the remaining work that had to be done was a shesh dinarim, so noisen lahem sela. So the worker that stopped, the kablan, will get paid his 1 sela. Oh, this is the shaila. So noisen. Oh no. So we give him a seller. It's not a shaila. The first worker will just get a seller. Or yigmuru melachtan v'yitlu shnei slime. Or if he wants to get his full slime, so let him finish the job and he'll get his 2 slime. Ve'im seller. And if the amount of work to get it done would cost a seller, which is exactly the amount that the first worker would have charged to get it done. So what do we do? Noisen lehem seller. So we give the first worker his seller, and we just hire the second worker, and we get the job done for 2 slime. But Reb Doisa Omer Shaman lehen ma she'osi la'asois. That we look at how much it has to be done in the job and how much it'll cost to do it. Hayofi shisha dinarim, and if we see that it'll cost shisha dinarim, we subtract from how much the first HaUman or the first kablan is supposed to be getting. If he's supposed to be getting a sell, which is 4 dinarim, and now the new worker will take 6 dinarim, so then we will subtract and take 2 dinarim out of what the first worker will get. First kablan will receive, and the first kablan will only get 2. The second kablan will get 6 dinarim, and it'll end up being 2 sloim. The job will end up costing the owner 2 sloim. Yep, and that's Reb Daisa. And that's not like we had it before. That we had before that if the first kablan had done half of the work, he was supposed to get 2 sloim for the whole work, and the new worker would cost 6 dinarim, which is a sell and a half, that we would still give the first worker a whole seller. But here Reb Doisa cuts into his wage because he backed out. So dinarim. Noisen lahem shekel. We give him a shekel, which is 2 dinarim. Half a sell is a shekel. Oh yigmuru, or they have the option they can finish the work and get their full pay. Oh yigmuru melachtan v'yitlu shnei slime. V'im seller. And if the work that has to be done is a seller's worth of work, sell it. We are giving that. Then Reb Doisa would say, then you can give the first worker his seller. because it's not going to cost more. You always look at how much the full amount was originally stipulated for the Baal Bayis to pay, and that's what he has to end up paying. Now we're asking that we can end up that there's only taroimus. That if one backs out, there's only going to be taroimus and there won't be any monetary claims. That there's no avud, right? If a person backs out, a worker backs out from a job, he'll get like we said, if there's equal amount. No, as we said, when does sometimes if to finish the job will cost the same as what he would have taken for it, and he can get and the first worker, Kabbalan, can get his full amount for the work that he did. When do we say when do we say that? As long as when the worker backed out of a job, it wasn't a type of job that there'll be a tremendous loss on that work that he dropped out. But if there'll be a loss, he won't get even for the value of what he worked on. If it's a davar avud and the owner is desperate to have it finished, and if he doesn't have it finished, it'll go leibud. So soicher aleihin, like the Mishnah said, he can soicher aleihin. If he can't find any workers, he can take a person who's not. He can't find anyone even for the top price of that type of job. He can't find anyone even for that high price. He can take a person and just offer him way beyond the cost for that worker. That's called soicher aleihin, and then charge the first kablan for that pay, all that extra money, because that first kablan caused him damage by backing out of a davar, which would be a big hefsid, or mortan, or the Mishnah said, or another eitzah for a kablan that backed out is you can, because he knows he has you, especially in a place like this, you can't find anyone to do the job. He knows he has the Baal Bayis over the barrel. So what you can do is you can trick him. You can offer him to please finish the job. I'll give you like so much more money just to finish the job. I realize that it's just not worth it for you to do the job, and I will pay you because I need this job done. I'll pay you twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times what I was going to pay you. Yes, I will. And then you can just not pay him. But just as he's trying to take advantage of you, you can hold him to the original agreement. Ketzad, because he's tempted, because he knows he has you over the barrel, so therefore he has really no rights to do that, and therefore he should hold him to the original contract. Ketzad amatan, how do you trick him? Omar lahen sela ketzatzti. Tell him that we originally agreed on a sela ketzatzti lechem bo v'tolu shtayim. Coming up, I'll give you double. That's what you can do. So what does it mean that you can hire somebody and pay exorbitantly above the normal price for this job, and then charge the original kabbalan? How much higher can you go? Ad kama soicher aleihen ad 45 zuz. That's the amount they can go.
Why does it say or?
These are options.
50?
45 zuz. 45 zuz. We'll speak about this later. A few daf down. So, Bizman she'ein sham poilim. And all of this, when you can do this, is there's nobody else to hire. But if there is someone to hire, poilim liskor. Aval yesham polim lisko, but if there are, even if you have to pay the higher price for them, so the first kablan can tell you to go hire them, and then the balabais can only have taroimus on that first kablan. Omar say b'schor, the first kablan can say go and hire them. Me'elu, ein lo alehen el taroimus. That's all he can have on that in a case like that. Tony Tana. So we learned the Bryce Kamei the Rab following. Noisin Lahem Scharon, we learned above, said that in the case of an umnin that backed out, it sent like the case of the donkey drivers to the field that there was no, if they had already gone down to the site at work site, you had to pay them full. So Kamei Tani Tona Kamei the Rab Noisin Lahem Scharon Mishalim. They pay them full if they went to the site. Omarle Chavibe, Rabbi Chia, my uncle. Rav said, my uncle Rabbi Chia, who is called Chavibai, Omar Ilu Ono heavy. If I was there, I wouldn't even have paid him low heavy Yavena Lahen. I wouldn't have given him for going down to the site and not doing the work. I would only pay him like a poil bottle, like the Brisa didn't mention over there. Ba'at Amra Noisin Lehem Scharon Mishalim, and the Brisa says you pay him Scharon Mishalim. Rabbi Chia said I would have only paid him as a poil bottle. In fact, the more of a ha Allah Katani. We just said in that Brisa that, or it was said on the Brisa, or said in the Brisa, that how can you compare going and doing work, whole day work, or going and not doing whole day work? And why would they get paid full day's work? And the Brisa itself asked the same question that Rabbi Chia was asking over here, was saying. Tani, we said, Eno Daima, Habo Tain Lahabo Reikan, coming back with the donkeys empty or coming with them packed full. Or doing a full days of work, or sitting idle and enjoying yourself and getting paid for it, or sitting idle. So the fact that Rav mentioned this, they want to say that the reason was because the Brisa, which spoke about poil bottle, pay him as a Yoshev poil bottle, hadn't been said. That part was the very bottom part of the Mishnah. It wasn't said over in front of Rab, and therefore it was also said in the Mishnah, and that's why he was quoting his uncle Rabbi Chia, who seemed to be going against that Brisa, but really he was saying the same thing as the Brisa. So some say that they really did. It really did have that part. Rab also saw that part. So what was he bringing his uncle Rabbi Chia for? They did bring that part down, that he only gets paid as a poil bottle. So why was he bringing Rabbi Chia that said, I wouldn't have paid him full, I would have only paid him as a poil bottle? So that's not what Rabbi Chia said. If I was there, I wouldn't even give him anything. That's what Rabbi Chia was responding to that Brisa. Like you say, you give him as a poil bottle because they went there and they didn't do anything. I wouldn't have given him any money. Why not? But I'm not poil bottle, and you say you give him as a poil bottle. So Elakasha. So it's kasha because Rabbi Chia wouldn't have given him, and there the whole Brisa says that we give him as a poil bottle. No, it's not a kasha that Rabbi Chia says he wouldn't give anything, and the Brisa says that they will still receive as a poil bottle. Why not? Hadis ayre ba'are mideursa. Hadilosayre la'ara mideursa. No, the difference is that in the Brisa where you are paying him because he didn't go there at night and look and survey the job before going there the next morning. So therefore, he didn't know that it was the field was all watered out from rain or from flood. Therefore, it wasn't even workable. And so the fact that he came the next day, it's not really his fault. The Baal Bayis should have somehow warned him not to come and told him, I'm not going to pay you if you come, and he didn't. So, but in the case where Rabbi Chia was referring to, where he wouldn't have paid him anything because the workers had surveyed the work site the night before and saw that it was flooded out and there wasn't anything to do the next day. So why did they show up? It was their fault. They shouldn't have showed up. Therefore, they're not getting anything. According to Rabbi Chia. Like in the following case, HaUman to Oga Agire L'Rafka. Person who hires somebody to dig ditches, water ditches. Also, Matra Mile and water comes and fills it up. So Maya. So what happens? Does he have to get paid? So if the worker had checked out this field the night before, then we say that say to the pilot, it's his problem. He saw that it looked like rain, possible that it was going to rain, or it already had been flooded, and he came anyway. So it's his loss. Lo Sire Arye if the pilot hadn't been there and didn't check it out, so say to the balabais, it was on the balabais to have warned him somehow. Yoiv lahu poil batal. And in a case like that, where he didn't go the night before to check it out, and it was on the balabais to warn him, and if he would come and not do any work, then he would get paid as a poil batal. And we'll stop here.
Yeah.